Be careful what you wish for. You could end up old before you have experienced life. This is the story of Peter, a young boy who was bored with life, and he's out taking a hike in the woods. He stepped off on a path, and he thought, I think I'll just take a moment and rest here. And he fell asleep. He was suddenly startled, for there was an older woman standing there. What is that you have in your hand? And she said, it's a magic ball. And she said, whoever owns it, they can make time go faster by pulling out the thread a little bit at a time. You can't push it back in. And so Peter took the ball, went on his way, and the next day at school, when he was a little bored again, he was thinking about, boy, I wish that school was over and I could go out and play. And he remembered the ball in his pocket, and he reached in and he pulled the ball out, and he took the thread and gave it a tiny pull. All of a sudden, he was home, and he saw his mom, and he was getting ready for dinner. And he thought, what a wonderful gift. And so Peter began to pull the string whenever circumstances didn't go his way. And so he thought, I want to be out of school someday and marry this young girl that he was really fond of. And one day he just took the ball and he pulled it, and the next thing you know, Peter was getting married. And on his wedding day, they were rejoicing, and then he got some news that he was going to lose his job. And he couldn't handle the thought of a hardship with the new marriage, so he took the ball and he pulled the string, and he was advancing forward now, and he had a new job. And it wasn't long after this that Peter and his wife had a couple of children, but as you have children, you also have problems, and Peter was struggling with sickness that the children would get. Whenever Peter was met with a big challenge, he would pull that magic thread and find himself outside of all the trouble that he had experienced. And so there was a time when he had some financial difficulties and he didn't know what to do, and so he gave a little tug on the thread, and the next thing you know, he was out of the difficulty, but then there was a new set of challenges he was facing. One day he looked over at his mother and he noticed that she really had aged very, very quickly. And he felt bad about that. But one day another challenge came up and he pulled a little thread, and the next thing he knows, he's standing before the graveside of his mother. And he realizes that all of his kids have grown up, and he and his wife are now turning gray. And he begins to think about his life and how he had avoided all these problems and troubles, but how life had gone by so very, very quickly. That day he walked to the woods where he stepped in that day off that path and met that old woman. And he lay down to just rest for a while. And suddenly he saw this old woman, and she said to him, Peter, she says, how has your life been? He said, well, my life has really not seen any sorrows or trouble, but I feel like it's gone so very quickly, and I've missed so much. And he said, is there any way that I can start over again with my life? And with that, she reached out and took the magic thread from his hand. And the next moment, he awoke. His mom was shaking him to get ready for school. That day, he had more joy going to school and seeing his classmates and doing his work, because now he knew that there was yet time ahead, though it may be fraught with troubles. But he would learn the lessons of life he couldn't learn any other way. That's what God does for you and me. We never want to pull the thread. because we won't learn what God is wanting to teach us in His all-sufficient grace for you and me.